pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Prayer, please.
O Lord, bless thy servants in the ministry of public affairs who serve thee in this chamber. Give them quiet minds and hearts that they may hear thy voice. Help them to know when to speak, when to be silent. Give them strength to oppose the wrong and uphold the right. And grant that they have a good conscience and soul, at peace with thee and with one another. Amen.
As is customary in this chamber, we always stand for a moment of silence to honor those who are serving at home and abroad, protecting our freedoms, our first responders, for those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. Tonight, I'd also like to extend a moment of silence to the five police officers that were gunned down in Dallas, Texas. Moment of silence, please. Thank you. Please be seated.
This meeting is being held in conformance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice has been given to the newspaper, and notice of the meeting has been posted in public places. Next open public meeting of the council will be held on Monday, July 25th, 2016, at 7:30 p.m. Mrs. Dungy. Dr. Belli.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Mr. Mollis.
Here.
Panos.
Here.
Mr. Rosencrantz.
Here.
Mrs. Sohar.
Here.
Mrs. Walker.
Here.
President Cahill.
Here.
9 present.
9 present. We have a quorum. We'll like to go to the bill list.
Mr. President,
Yes.
if you bear with me for a minute, I'd like to introduce June Dungy. She's a new council member. She's replacing a good friend of mine, Reggie Butler, and I'd just like to welcome her to the council, and I wish good success for her. Thank you.
Yeah, please. The clerk's going to just make an announcement real quick.
Yeah, President Cahill, if I may, just a reminder, as we discussed previously for tonight's meeting, Mrs. Dungy will be next to the last to vote during the roll call. She will go right after Mrs. Walker and right before you. Next meeting, Mrs. Dungy will be the first to vote in the roll call.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's go to the bill list. Mr. Rosencrantz.
Thank you, Council President. Bill list combined meeting, July 11th, 2016. Accounts payable, July 11th, 2016, $14,455,280.40.
I have a motion, please.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Green. I have a second?
Second.
Panos, any questions, comments?
I have a question about the
Walker?
bill list, yes. During the budget hearings, we had spoken about the volunteer EMS squads. They receive $45,000 each, and some of them have gone professional. So what I'm saying, I know we had mentioned at the budget hearings that moving forward, we were going to look into the funding for these. Are we moving to do that before the next budget?
Mr. Marion?
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Mrs. Walker. A couple of issues. We did receive an email over the weekend regarding tonight's bill list and the listing of the annual contribution to one of the first aid squads that had, as of last year, went to third-party billing. In going through the statute, nothing in the statute precludes a township from providing an annual contribution to a first aid squad, volunteer first aid squad. The volunteer first aid squad in question does not have paid members. So that's something that legally there's no issue. From the policy perspective, we had talked and we had been meeting regularly with members of the first aid squads and OB-TEMS, which covers the daytime coverage and then any additional coverage. We've been meeting with them to try to come up with some better ways to have coverage from the volunteers in those periods where OB-TEMS is not covering. And in a way, if the OB-TEMS does provide coverage, to have them be the first call. So we instituted a first call policy to try to stop some of the issues with regards to the extra costs that were concerning them. So from the policy perspective, we told them that we were going to be evaluating all of these in terms of service hours. The first aid squad, it's important to note, is not one of the ones that was questionable in terms of how much time and hours they're putting forth. So at this point, we would recommend that we would go forward with the contribution for this year. It's the second installment. As part of the next budget process, we're going to do another workshop meeting. I think it would be good to invite them to the table with the council as well. But at this time, then nothing legally precludes you from doing what you normally would do when the paperwork is submitted from those volunteer squads tonight.
Oh, no, I understand, because at the budget hearings, we had said that this year we were going to pay them. But moving forward, I was just wondering, before it gets too close to our next budget cycle, that we could sit down
Well,
and see.
Mrs. Walker, two things to
Yes.
differentiate, which I learned recently when we met with them in May and June. There's an issue, it's funding, and then the issue that volunteer coverage and hours. So I think it's all part of the same conversation, but it's good to differentiate between that. Because we did try to address with OB-TEMS those gap periods where they're covering where volunteer squads would normally cover. Obviously, it's not the best solution, and we're still working towards something, but we're trying to come up. So we should have a conversation. Maybe we could do something with Council President, we could do something in August.
Sure.
And then go
That
from
makes
there.
sense, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, if we could have some kind of a workshop, so before the budget is struck, we know what we're doing.
We know we'll get really efficient with our budget, so we'll be making sure that we'll have that beforehand.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Mrs. Soha?
I just want to reiterate to what Mrs. Walker had said. I think we need an open dialogue with all these groups, because this way, when we do come to next year's budget, we'll come to a conclusion and everyone will be part of the process, and I think that's really important.
Mr. Hale, just
Yes, please.
for the council's information, and especially, good evening, Mrs. Dungy, welcome. Just for the council's information, we've had a number of meetings with the individual first aid squads as well as them as a group. I'll report out to council now going forward because we're talking about those policy issues. But I think in order to get, even if they're third-party billing and doing something, and there may be other squads interested in going to that, we need to have a conversation about what the implications are town-wide. So I'll be able to report out to council now more regularly.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, the motion is second, right? Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Panos? Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Yes. Mrs. Walker? Yes. Ms. Dungy? President Cahill?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstention.
Okay, moving on to public hearings and
No,
ordinances.
whoa. There's more.
Oh, sorry.
Payroll, June 24th,
Wanted a
2016.
fast meeting, so sorry.
$860,332.71.
Have a motion, please.
I'll move it.
And a second?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Green, second by Mr. Rosencrantz. Discussion? No discussion, roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Mrs. Walker? Yes. Ms. Dungy? President Cahill?
Yes.
9 yes.
Payroll overtime, June 24th, 2016, $35,244.26.
Have a motion, please.
Move it.
Moved by Mrs. Panos,
I'll second it.
second by Mr. Green. Mr. Marion?
Thank you, Council President. Payroll overtime for the payroll ending June 24, 2016, in the amount of $35,244.26. If you look in your packages, the only uptick you would see outside of the police department, which is probably a low tick, if that's a word, $2,483.87 for subcode, and we indicated we're still working on getting our full staff up in our code enforcement department. If you go to the police department, the pay period ending June 24, 2016 represents 403 man and woman hours for a total amount $25,923.44. Sworn officer overtime for that period, $23,766.23. If you subtract grants, the amount of $737.55, and earned time off, $6,460.83. Total overtime sworn officers, $16,567.85. We do have 3 officers still out on medical. This pay period, we also had several investigations, and they did run the physical test for hiring, which required some overtime for some of our officers.
Any questions, Mr. Marion, on the overtime? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Mrs. Walker? Yes. Ms. Dungy? President Cahill?
Yes.
9 yes.
That conclude the bill list?
No. Payroll, July 8th, 2016, $867,010.82.
Motion, please.
Move it.
Moved by Mrs. Panos, second by Mr. Mollis. Questions, comments? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Mollis.
Yes.
Mrs. Panos.
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz.
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar. Yes. Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Dungy. President Kale.
Yes.
9 yes.
And lastly, payroll overtime for July 8th, 2016, $30,810.81.
Have a motion, please.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Green,
Second.
second by Mrs. Panos. Mr. Marion?
Thank you, President. Payroll, as indicated by Councilmember Rosencrantz, payroll as of July 8, 2016, $30,810.81. Again, as outlined in your packages, you'll see an uptick again, code enforcement for subcode official. In regards to police department, for the pay period ending July 8th, represents 374.75 man and woman hours for a total amount of $23,971.43.
God bless
Bless
you.
you.
Bless you. Total sworn officer overtime for that period, $22,079.23. If you deduct grants, the amount of $671.35, and earned time off, which is contractual, the amount of $5,193.99. Total sworn officer overtime for the pay period, $16,213.89. Again, 3 officers out on medical. In this case, we had several ongoing investigations, and also it's the start of the vacation season. I would point out currently, looking at trends today with Sergeant Calvoso, we are roughly $50,000 under budget for the year. So I give a lot of credit to Chief Volker, Sergeant Calvoso, and Police Department, because those numbers have been really good as of
Right.
late.
Questions, Mr. Marion, on the overtime? Seeing and hearing none, roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg. Yes. Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Mollis.
Yes.
Mrs. Panos.
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz.
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar. Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Dungy. President Kale.
Yes.
9 yes.
That concludes the bill list.
Thank you, Mr. Rosencrantz. Moving on to public hearings. H1, Release Reduction Performance Guarantee, Primrose School, 3647 US Highway 9, Old Bridge, New Jersey, Block 13,000, Lot 3. Good evening. If you can just state your name and address for the record.
I'm George Allen with Remington and Vernick Engineers, and Jeff Fedorchak is our engineer. We represent the consulting engineers on behalf of the Old Bridge Engineering Department. We are making recommendation for the bond reduction and escrow releases for this project. We've done all the inspections and through the construction and find everything to be satisfactory.
Good evening, Council President, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, members of the professional staff. My name is Peter Klauser. I'm an attorney with the firm Heilbrunn Pape. We represent the school. We've had the opportunity to review the report from Remington Vernick. We agree with it. We also understand our obligation to submit the maintenance bonds before the bonds will be released, and the applicant will do that.
Council member comments, questions about this? Mrs. Sohar, did you raise your hand? Oh, anybody? I'll go to the public. Anybody from the public want to be heard in this application? I'll close the public portion. I need a motion, please.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Green, second by Mrs. Panos. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Mollis.
Yes.
Mrs. Panos.
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz.
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar.
Yes.
Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Dungy.
Yes.
President Kale.
Yes.
9 yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Much. Have a good evening.
You too. Ordinances for second reading. Ordinance number 1, 2016-13, establishing authorization for third-party payroll distribution. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Green. Can I have a second? Second by Mrs. Panos. Council comments, questions about this? Anybody from the public want to be heard on ordinance number 1, second reading? I'll close the public portion. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Mollis.
Yes.
Mrs. Panos.
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz.
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar. Mr. Walker. Mrs. Walker.
Yes.
Ms. Dungy.
Yes.
President Kale.
Yes.
9 yes.
Ordinance number 2, 2016-12, amending Chapter 363 of the Code of the Township of Old Bridge, entitled Property Abandoned, by amending various sections of same. Have a motion, please. Moved by Mrs. Sohar.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mollis. Questions from council? I'll go to the public. Anyone from the public want to be heard on this particular item? Yes, sir. No, come on up. Just name and address for the record, please.
Bob Thompson, Cliffwood Beach, New Jersey. I just want to know with the property of the ordinance, because I wasn't here the last meeting, are we at a certain point, like of years that it's empty? Does that matter now, or it starts from when it's enacted?
Marion or Mr. Roselli? Yeah.
Once it, after it gets adopted and the appeal period runs, so it would become effective after that period, which is generally 20 days after it gets signed by the mayor and council president.
And then what would happen exactly?
Then
at
it goes
that
into,
point?
then it goes into, and after 20-day appeal period, then it would go into effect.
And what would happen at that point with, because I didn't hear the first part of the ordinance, what would happen at that point that it goes into effect?
Well, then.
They would start approaching the bank on doing something with the property, or?
Well, they can't, right. Then you follow the outline of what the ordinance allows and requires, generating the list, to the extent that there's the properties that need to be, we deem to be abandoned and that need to be addressed, then we can start following the process he set forth in the ordinance.
All right, so it wouldn't really make a difference if the property's already been
Oh, no,
abandoned
no,
for
no,
5
no,
years?
no,
or
right.
whether
If there's a property
Oh.
that's been, correct.
Yeah, that
correct,
was my
right,
question.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else from the public want to be heard on this item?
Council President, just
Brian.
very briefly, regards to those property maintenance, we have simultaneously started to compile a list of those properties that would qualify under this ordinance. And I think that the purpose of this ordinance really was to make it, or to try to give us a few more powers in terms of what we could do with the abandoned properties, in terms of demolition, and outline even the process for how a demolition would even occur. It's still going to be a lengthy process to Mr. Thompson's complaint, because I know that property Mr. Thompson's thinking about. But it's still going to be a lengthy process. However, this is kind of giving us another tool or more tools in the box to try to address it town-wide. So just for the record.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis? Yes. Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Yes. Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Dungy? Yes. President Gale?
Yes.
9 yes.
Preliminary public comments to the council, subject to the following conditions and restrictions. 1, during the preliminary public portion of the meeting, any person may address the township council on one subject for a maximum period of 5 minutes. Number 2, any such person desiring to speak during the preliminary public portion shall first sign a list maintained by the township clerk for such purpose. Number 3, comments during the preliminary public comment portion of the meeting shall not encompass second reading ordinances or any of the matter for which comment or a public hearing is to occur at this meeting. Do you have a name?
Philip McGovern?
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Philip McGovern. I live at 201 Yorkshire Court in Society Hill. Tonight, I would like to talk about the Old Bridge Animal Shelter. I was looking at the summary of appropriations in the Old Bridge budget for 2016, and the amount of the budgeted items was $140,000 in 2015 and $200,000 in 2016. That's a 42% increase. I got to wondering how the shelter was funded. I'm told that the adoption fees are $200. Do those fees go to the town or to the shelter? The dog and cat licenses, do they go to the town or to the shelter? My mother-in-law passed away, and the family requested that in lieu of flowers, funds be sent to the shelter. Did that go to the town or to the shelter? And I just wonder why such a large increase of 42%? Vet bills, pet food. Also, in case someone brings a pet, or not a pet, but a cat or a dog to the shelter and it's full, do they leave their name where they can be contacted when there is room for that animal? And one last thing. I think there ought to be a TV show on Channel 15 about the shelter. I see pets that are lost on there. I don't see a show. I think it would encourage people to adopt. Thank you.
Marion, you think at some point you could respond to Mr. McGovern's questions?
Most definitely. Just from a budget perspective, I would hope for people not to walk out and think that pet food drove up the budget by 42%.
Right.
In terms of the last 3 years budgetarily, we have worked with the police department to come up with a shelter budget that was reflective of the operational needs of Old Bridge. We did increase personnel, I'm going to say 2 years ago, in terms of a shelter coordinator, in terms of another additional ACO. We also had some strange years there where we had part-time temporary people to fill in, and we had some considerations when there were retirements that we wanted to make sure that there was coverage. So you did see an increase. I think for the public during the budget process, we did address a number of those issues through the budget process. And I would be welcome to sit down with Mr. McGovern and go through some of the mechanics of it. And
Perfect. Thank you. Okay,
That's it.
that's it? Okay, I'll close that public portion comment section. Council member comments. Anybody want to make comments? Dr. Weinberg.
Okay, first of all, I want to say congratulations to Lori Hernandez on her achieving and her success in being a member of one of the gymnasts that will represent the United States this August in Rio. She is a resident of Old Bridge, so we should be very proud of that. And congratulations to her and her family, and all the best in her endeavor of a gold medal. And I think we should do something in town. And I was thinking of doing something in town, maybe in, like how we used to have movies in the park, maybe the night that she performs, we could do something, if it's possible, I'm just throwing it out there, in one of the parks, having a screening or something, but, you know, I don't know whether everyone would be interested in it, but I think Old Bridge should do something, considering that she does come from Old Bridge, to, you know, support her and show our support. So
During the
congratulations.
administrative report, I'm going to follow up Mr. Marion's report with something just hot off the presses that I'm getting now.
Okay,
From
great.
the family we're putting something together for.
Great,
in
great.
town,
It's quite an achievement.
Really is.
The next thing that I wanted to talk about, several council meetings ago, I talked about the ordinance that gives fees to residents about the developer fees, and I had a lot of questions, and I was wondering when I would get the answers to them and, you know, have a follow-up with that so I can proceed.
Please.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Greenberg, you did send me your questions. There was multiple issues that you addressed. I currently have for the council, which I'll distribute, I can actually distribute it tomorrow, a report from CGP&H regarding the listing of all those affordable housing units that are in town by category where they are, and then the role of that third-party administration. So that's a separate way. I think you would ask regarding the management of our existing affordable housing. Also, I know Dawn is back, Hamachi's away. We did run reports regarding the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So I do have reports hot off the presses as of Friday for the trust fund, what's been spent to date in those categories of expenditures, because I believe you did ask about the spending plan, the funding ordinance. I have that from 1995. So I have a package for those two areas. In regards to the fee ordinance, I think we got to come up with a discussion topic. Mark can address some things when we get into closed session, because there's going to be a number of changes coming up August, September, that have to be addressed through the course of whatever we're working on for affordable housing. So I'll distribute some information tomorrow. I don't mean to trickle it out to you, but I'll start to put some stuff out there, and we're going to be talking about it in the next couple months for sure.
Okay, I think it's very important to revisit that ordinance and make some changes to it. Okay, thank you.
Any other council member comments? Ms. Dungy.
I would like to say thank you to all the council persons that voted for me. I feel very honored to be sitting here in Reggie's seat, Councilman Reggie Butler's seat. Reggie was a great man, and I know there would be big shoes for me to fill sitting here, but I promise you I would do my very best to represent the people of the 3rd Ward and the people of Old Bridge. I thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Well said. Anybody else? Council member comments? Okay, I'll close that piece. Do we have a report of the township clerk?
None at this time, thank you.
Report of the township
Nothing to report,
attorney?
Mr. President.
Okay, we'll move on to the administrative report. Mr. Marion? None at this time.
None at this time.
That was Kenny throwing his voice.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Mayor, good evening, Mayor and Council. Administrative report for July 11, 2016. Item number 1, just a reminder for residents that Old Bridge customers who lose power for any reason during the summer should call JCP&L directly at 1-888-LIGHTS, and that's 2 S's on lights, to report outages. For updated information on power outages, service issues, storm restoration, or important safety tips, Residents can also visit the JCP&L First Energy 24/7 Power Center at firstenergycorp.com. Item 2, in early June, the township received 6 proposals for upgrades to our phone system and related services. We have a resolution on our consent agenda this evening amending the existing contract with Monmouth Telecom of Red Bank, New Jersey to include replacement of the on-site PBX with a hosted PBX service provider for tonight's consideration. Item number 3, on June 14, 2016, the township received 8 bids for the 2016 CDBG road reconstruction project. A resolution awarding a contract in the amount of $182,638.54 to Mecco Inc. of Clarksburg, New Jersey is also included on the consent agenda for tonight's meeting. Excuse me. Item 4, on June 28th, the township received 7 bids for the 2016 annual curb replacement program. A resolution awarding a contract in the amount of $395,731.37 to Lancia Construction Corporation of South River, New Jersey is included on tonight's consent agenda. Item 5, on June 30th, staff from Administration, Engineering, and Fire District 3 met with representatives from the Middlesex County Office of Engineering and Mazer Consulting regarding planned drainage and roadway improvements to Marlborough Road between Charles Street and Second Place. Specific topics covered during the meeting include project information, schedule, access during construction, traffic control, and community outreach. Hard copies of those meeting handouts have been forwarded to the Township Clerk's office for distribution to council to review at your leisure. I would also point out that Middlesex County will be present on July 25th to do a brief presentation on this project to discuss with council and kind of bring into some project details. Item 6, on July 6th, the township received 7 bids for Furman Boulevard Stabilization Project. The bids ranged in price from $91,972.80 to $217,000. A resolution awarding a contract for the project will be included on the consent agenda for July 25th council meeting. Item 7, July 16th, Mayor Henry and volunteers from Calvary Chapel, Old Bridge, Big Kids, Girl Scout Troop 80779, Old Bridge Lightning Gold Baseball, under 11, Old Bridge Rec Cheer Sapphires, Old Bridge Soccer League Hornets, under 15, and Rulera will be cleaning up Birch Street, Marlborough Road, Mimi Road, Old Road, the Lawrence Harbor Beachfront, and Pirates Cove Park area. For additional information, residents can contact our Clean Communities Coordinator, 732-721-5600, extension 6107. Item 8, another reminder, the Middlesex County Food Organization and Outreach Distribution Services has a network of more than 100 food pantries, soup kitchens, and social service agencies, which will also once again be participating in the USDA Summer Food Service Program, which ensures that low-income children continue to receive nutritious meals when school is not in session. For additional information, residents can contact the USDA Summer Food Service Program, 609-292-4498, or visit USDA Food and Nutrition website at fnsusda.gov. It's also up on the Middlesex County website, and we have information on this on our township website. Item 9 is another reminder, the Old Bridge Food Bank is still collecting items during our summer months. Collection bins are located in the Municipal Administration Building, Old Bridge Public Library Building, Rec Building, Civic Center, and Senior Center. For additional information on the food bank or a list of needed items, residents can contact the Old Bridge Food Bank, 732-721-5600, extension 6625. Items also posted up on the town website. Item 10, on July 17th, the Township of Old Bridge, in conjunction with the Middlesex County Board of Chosen Freeholders, will be hosting a Middlesex County Household Hazardous Waste Drop-Off Day from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. right here at the Township Department of Public Works, located in the municipal complex. This service is for county residents only, and proof of residency will be required to participate. For additional information on household hazardous waste drop-off days, residents can contact the Middlesex County Solid Waste Management at 732-745-4170, or visit Middlesex County website at countymiddlesex.nj.us. 11, a reminder, the Township Division of Tax Collection is open Monday through Friday between the hours of 8 and 5 during the third quarter tax collection period. Tax office will be also open between the hours of 9 and 1 on Saturday, August 6th, and between the hours of 8 and 7 on August 10th. For additional information, you can contact our Division of Tax Collection. And finally, Saltwater Day will be held on August 13th from 2 to dusk at Old Bridge Waterfront Park in Lawrence Harbor. The event will feature craft foods, games, live entertainment, and fireworks. For additional information about this event, residents can contact the Department of Parks and Recreation, 732-721-5600, extension 4999, or visit township website at oldbridge.com.
Questions for Mr. Marion on his report? Mr. Green.
I just have a question. sorry.
That's okay. On
Ready, go ahead.
number 4, the annual curb replacement program,
Yes, sir.
expect for the vendor to start work this year,
Absolutely. We're going to say late summer. I'm going to say August.
August?
Unless Nicole throws something at me, but she's nodding in my direction. Yes.
I saw it before. Oh, this year's, yeah. No, that'd be great, because I think we're finally catching up a little
This
bit.
could be the first time in Old Bridge recent history that all the 16 projects will be done in 16. So we'll have to keep our
Yeah,
fingers
it's-
crossed.
it's-
Watch the big torrential downpours. That's my Murphy's Law.
I know you have to play around with the weather, but this is great. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Mrs. Walker?
I just want to know, do you know when the tax bills will be mailed out? Okay, thank you.
Tax collectors indicated tax bills will be out end of the week. So
Okay,
please run to
thank-
your mailbox, Mrs. Walker, and expect them.
Anybody else on the administrative report? Okay. Can I get a motion to accept the administrator's report, please?
Council
I'll move
President,
it.
can I
Oh,
just,
sorry,
before,
Mr.
and if you
Mayor?
want to adopt that first and just come back?
Yeah,
to
why
me,
don't we
whatever-
just adopt and I'll go to, yep, sure.
Move it.
Moved by Mrs. Panos, second by Mr. Green. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Yes. Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Dungy? President Kale?
Yes.
9 yes.
Thanks,
Mr.
Council.
Marion? Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Council. As we just spoke for a few minutes ago, I do have some information in reference to Lori. She will be in Old Bridge on Thursday night at the Old Bridge High School between the hours of 6 and 7 only. Please come. We're going to, well wishes, flowers. There will be no performances. It's just to come see Lori, and but we only have her in Old Bridge for that very short time. We started working on this Friday when we realized that she might qualify for the Olympics, and we posted all her events and the time she will be performing, and we'll continue that for the Olympics. Once they do set the schedule, we will post it on the website. I'll put it up on OBTV when she will be performing. Based on the time of the day, then maybe we can entertain, maybe have a town-wide viewing of, but we'll have to see when she will be performing, if it'll be live, if it's going to be taped. I just don't have all those details yet. And something as hectic as this, when you see national news and Old Bridge Township is on a TV,
Yep.
it's quite daunting, and you look at it in disbelief, especially how this young woman performs
Right.
at the age of 16. It's almost scary watching her, what she does. I'd also like to congratulate Travis Monahan, who did not qualify. He participated on Saturday in the 3,000-meter steeplechase. If anyone watched that event, that's another scary event where people jump over and into water. He did not qualify, but that's an accomplishment in itself, just to get that opportunity to qualify for the Olympics. And so Old Bridge is very proud of Lori, and we will be following her. And
That's great.
I know a lot of towns throughout the country are getting some bad press, but Old Bridge is getting some really good press. So we're very excited about what's going on. And I will personally make sure each council member is informed. I will send the invitations for Thursday event. I just received it.
Yep,
You'll
great.
get that by the end of the day or tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And please join me Thursday night between 6 and 7 at the high school. And all residents are welcome. First come, first serve. I think we have 500 photographs. If you have something that you would like autographed and she has an opportunity, she will, but we can't guarantee if you're going to be.
1 hour, that's a lot of autographs.
Yeah, and her coach is very strict about, and I don't want to get mad, her coach at me, that's for sure.
Yeah,
You'll wait in carpal tunnel from signing autographs.
that's right, that's
Yeah.
right.
So,
That's great.
well, we're excited. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a
Thank you,
great,
Council.
great achievement, unreal. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda, please. We have items C1 through C17. Can I have a motion to move?
Move it.
Moved by Mr. Rosencrantz.
Second.
By Mrs. Panos. We have separations from council. Mr. Green?
C1
C1,
and C8.
C8. Mr. Mollis, did you have something?
C12.
C12. Dr. Greenberg, I think I saw your hand up.
I had C1 also, but C3 also.
C3. Any other separations? So I have separated C1, C3, C8, and C12, correct? C15? Is that what I heard, C15? Okay. C15 as well? Any other separations? Okay, before we vote on this, anybody from the public want to be heard on items C1 through C15? C17, excuse me. I'll close the public portion. I have a motion for the balance, please, excluding the separations.
Move it.
Moved by Mrs. Panos, second by Mr. Mollis. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Yes. Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Dungy?
Yes.
President Gale?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay. C1, Mr. Green?
Yeah, so we discussed this before. I think it was an executive session a couple of times. The awarding of the contract for the, related to the affordable housing COA litigation. I just wonder what the status of it is now.
Sure, Mr. Green, if I could, we're going to discuss more of it in executive session because there was a new development this morning where the appellate division released a decision that may have an impact on our current litigation. But basically, if you recall, we had a hearing back in May, June, in which the court had preliminary given approval to a proposed settlement. The amendment to the contract related to the work that had been done by DeFrancisco's abatement firm, and then we're still in the process of working out details of ordinances that will be required to be adopted, and then we'll discuss in executive session what the appellate division decision may have with respect to what has happened so far.
Okay, so the proposal that was presented to the council, I guess they want to massage it a little bit, so to speak?
What, the contract? No, well, this is just to amend it. The original contract amount was for $20,000. This is to increase it to $40,000. That's just based upon the amount of work that's been done. Mind you, it certainly doesn't include fees my fees, which I've been working in conjunction with them. And it comes under retainer, it easily probably would have been double the amount of work that's been done to date. And this gets charged to the trust fund. So based upon the two hearings that we had and the work done to date, that's to cover the amount of the work that they've done and the bill submitted.
So you're going to talk a little bit more about this in executive session?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else on C1? Yes, Dr. Greenberg?
I certainly feel that professionals should be paid for the work that they do, but it is unfortunate that we don't understand the scope of the cost that COA costs town, the cost that a town has to incur to do this. Litigation is very expensive, and it is very unfortunate that judges mandate things instead of just upholding the law. They are not in the place to do what they're doing, and it is very unfortunate the burden that they're putting on towns with the COA. Thank you.
Anybody else on C1? Let me, Dr. Walker, I'm sorry, Mrs. Walker?
I want to agree with Dr. Greenberg as far as the COA, how much it costs towns. I think if residents even knew what COA was and they knew how much it was costing the towns, they would be out here fighting and screaming. I wish we could get an estimate of how much COA costs Old Bridge every single year.
Go around and I'll go back to Mr. Green. Anybody else want to comment on this? Mr. Green, you wanted to say something?
I just wanted to give an additional piece of information. This COA had in the past been managed by the state, and they eventually turned it over to the courts. So the township has to provide a plan as to what we have to do as far as the original COA requirements. Actually, I think we're on the third plan with COA. I think.
Third round. Correct. Third round, Mr. Green.
That's right, the third round, and I'm set against. I'm bothered. I'm dead set against it because I don't believe the state or a judge should be in a position to mandate the number of affordable housing that a municipality has to provide. I feel that each town should provide affordable housing, but I don't think it should be mandated by a complicated formula that was dictated by the state or now, which is overseen by attorneys. And yes, it is costing us a lot of money, and it's definitely a burden on the town. And from my personal opinion is, we're being mandated to provide a certain amount of housing that could very well change the picture of what Old Bridge looks like. So I just wanted to speak about this, to tell you that I'm against COA, and unfortunately, now it's in the hands of the local courts, and this litigation here is all being done in order to minimize the impact that Old Bridge will have. I think there's probably 700 affordable housing units that they're trying to reduce out of the total program that we were supposed to provide. Again, I'm dead set against the program, and it's unfortunate that we have to expend money for attorneys and so forth in order to defend ourselves, to provide the residents of Old Bridge the quality of life that they were used to when they came here. So that was just a comment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments before we vote on this? Do I have a motion in a second? I have a motion, please, on C1.
Move it.
Moved by Mrs. Panos. Can I have a second? Second. Second by Mr. Mollis. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Dungy?
Abstain.
President Gale?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstention.
Okay. C3, Dr. Greenberg.
Okay, in C3, a request, it's concerning the West Avenue Stormwater Relief Project. And when that contract was presented, the DuPont property, the owners of the DuPont property wanted an as-built for its completion. And I certainly recommend that the engineering firm that did the work get paid for it. I believe when professionals do the work, I know they do their due diligence and the time and efforts put into it, and it helps the township, and they should be paid for it. My question is, if in the contract they said they wanted an as-built, when it went out to bid, why wasn't that figure adjusted in the bid? Why when the bid was opened, or why when we put the specs out for the bid, why wasn't the as-built included?
Marion?
Let me start out by, just for the folks at home, what this is: amending a professional services contract with CME Associates from $69,500 to $76,250, representing an increase of $6,750 to provide as-built drawings for the West Avenue Stormwater Relief Project. In regards to a professional services contract, the proposal did not include those as-builts. The bid itself for the actual construction was a separate bid, and we talked about that at the last time. So in this case, I'm not sure, I can't tell you why we didn't include the as-builts. I know that that's a component that we want to have for the town. And you also have to send, prior to you getting on council, Dr. Greenberg, when we did this project, if you recall, this had gone back 10, 15 years with bond ordinance money and several different bond ordinances. So cobbling together, getting through that funding process, putting together some specs, going out to get inspections contracts. Then we had the vandalism. In this case, though, it could have been an oversight to me.
No, I can answer the question.
Or Mark can, but I just want to give a history of it because I think we were back here before.
Mr. Rizzoli?
Basically, Dr. Belli, is that they were provided with the contract at the beginning when we were putting together the design specification and the construction. After that had commenced, one of the things that we had to do was secure an easement from DeHernal. And as part of our negotiation with DeHernal to get this easement, that's where the pipe's running, one of the conditions that they had requested in order for us to get the easement was this as-built. So at the time the contract was awarded to CME, we weren't aware of, right, so that came on after the fact, and that's why it's being amended. So that's so we can complete the easement, and that's something that they required, so they can, in the event that they have to go into their property and dig it up, they want to know exactly where the pipe is.
Thank you for the
All right.
clarification.
And it's in our best
Certainly
interest
is-
to have these it's in the town's best interest to have them as as-built. Some of the problems that we incurred during the project was because there was no drawings, and we had to do physically borings to try to find existing water mains on site and the pipe that, in fact, I think there was a change order to readjust the elevation of the pipe. So it was in the best interest, and prior to the job starting, we weren't aware that you would need them, but Duhernal requested them. It's the right thing to do, the right thing to have
No,
on
I
file.
totally agree that it's the right thing to do, and I totally agree that the professionals should get paid for doing it. The way that it was worded, that it was in the contract, and I didn't understand why we did it separately instead of all together, and now the attorney gave me the explanation, and I appreciate
And
it.
as the MUA requires as-built all the time. so-
Oh, definitely. Everyone should.
Yes.
I'm not arguing that. I just wanted to.
Just for the folks at home, there's two separate contexts. So there was questions before regarding the construction piece of it and then that other stuff. So we have had change orders there.
Nope, it's glad it's
Project
done.
is really,
Thank you.
it's good. If anybody wants to be impressed, go see this project.
I have visited many times. Thank you.
Mrs. Panos, you want to be recognized?
I just want to say the most people impressed are the residents that live down there. For almost 20 years, they've been flooding, and this is an ongoing process. Whatever DuPont, we sat upstairs banging on tables sometimes with the engineers and the construction people, but it's done. It's finally done. Thank you. And
Anybody else
the
on
residents of Ward 6 and West Avenue, thank you.
Anybody else on C3? Okay. I have a motion on C3, please.
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Green. I have a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rosencrantz. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Dungy?
Yes.
President Cahill?
Yes.
9 yes.
Okay, C8, Mr. Green?
Yes, we touched upon this on the business administrator's report earlier, and I just wanted to say, or add to it, that it's great that we're doing this, we're awarding this contract for 2016, when I know there was a year, for instance, when we didn't do any work because of the funding issue, and I know there was another year where the contractor who was hired never failed to do the work. So I think this is a great thing, and it's nice to see that it seems like the township is caught up on this program, the curb replacement program, because in Ward 5, it's very important for me and the residents. Thank you.
Anybody else on C8? Can I have a motion on C8, please?
I'll move it.
Moved by Mr. Green. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Rosencrantz. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Yes. Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Dungy?
Yes.
President Cahill?
Yes.
9 yes.
C12, Mr. Mollis?
Yes, I heard the report that Mr. Marion made about the township system. This upgrade now, how old is the system that we're using?
Right now, I'm going to say roughly 30-plus years. Yeah.
30-plus years?
Yeah.
So we're like doubling the improvements and so forth, too. I mean, see, we're doubling the price. I mean, 30 years old, and
Well, let me, actually, if you don't mind, unless Mark will have a briefer explanation, I can give kind of an overview for the folks at home. Essentially, we have here amendment to contract with Monmouth Telecom, increasing our contract for voice and data services in the amount of $19,735.20 annually to $39,954.24 for additional work of a hosted PBX and related services, which includes an upgrade from the T1 services to 50/5 TLS fiber-based data services. Essentially, what we're doing is amending our contract with Monmouth Telecom. As I mentioned in my report, we got 6 proposals. What this is doing is all of our services will be provided by Monmouth Telecom, which is our existing provider. What you don't see there, Mr. Mollis, is there's 3 other services that, due to the fact we're moving to a hosted PBX, will no longer be required. Total annual cost increase to the township by going from this on-site PBX 30 years to this new hosted service, $2,719.24. So what you didn't see in here, this is only going to increase the contract amount for this provider and wiping out the need for those other providers and getting us a hosted off-site PBX service, which Mr. Cahill knows more about than I do, but I could try to,
thank you, Mr. Marion.
the cloud,
The cloud, exactly right.
He said,
magic.
Cloud. Anybody else want to, any questions on C12? State-of-the-art technology. I'll just leave it at that. Motion on C12, please.
move it.
Moved by Mrs. Panos, second by Mr. Mollis. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Sohar? Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Dungy?
Yes.
President Cahill?
Yes.
9 yes.
C-15, Mrs. Walker? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was Mrs. Walker. Excuse me. Absolutely. Mr. Marion, C-15?
For to Mr. Roselli, or if we have,
Okay.
I think that was there was a hearing at the, Stungy, there was, the hearing that we just had this evening, which authorized this one was the release of the performance guarantee. What happens is after those hearings, we then memorialize what occurred on that evening with respect to this particular bond by adoption of the resolution. So at our next meeting, you'll see a similar resolution whereas the hearing is held to see if there's any objections to the release, and then once it's approved by vote by the council by voice vote, we then at the next meeting typically adopt a resolution that memorializes the action taken with respect to the release of their performance bond. So I'm not sure if you were here at that meeting or not.
was not,
Okay.
no.
So you weren't at that meeting, so basically, at this particular meeting for GS Realty, a similar hearing was conducted, and then this is memorializing the actions of the council at that meeting. So what I'd recommend then is that you abstain from voting on this resolution. Okay?
That makes
You're
sense?
welcome.
So to Mr. Roselli's point, next meeting, the people that we talked to, we had that hearing, there'd be a memorialization on the next agenda. Make sense? Okay, great. Can I have a motion, please, on C-15?
Motion.
Mr. Moss made a motion. Can I have a second by Mrs. Panos? Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Yes.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Ms. Dungy?
Abstain.
President Cahill?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 abstention.
Okay. Public comments on any subject matter? Yes, sir.
Governor, 201 Yorkshire Court, Society Hill. I just want the council to advertise C-17, supporting the Clear the Shelters campaign on July 23rd, 2016, waiving all pet adoption fees. I'd like that on the sign outside and on the TVs, Channel 15. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public want to be heard? I'll close the public portion. We are going to go into executive session. Do we want to do council member comments? Anybody have any burning issues to talk about?
Council comments now before?
Yeah, because we're not going to come back. So would you like to go?
Sure, just briefly what Mr. McGovern said, that the shelter on July 23rd is waiving all pet adoption fees. And it's been on national news. They're doing this around the country. And summer is a great time to adopt a pet. More people have time to train them during the summer, dogs, cats. There's a lot of cats. People love kittens, and this time, yes, there are a lot of kittens, but they all become cats within 6 months. So I urge you to find it in your heart to adopt a pet. They bring a lot of joy and love to and life to your home. So if you do have the time and the ability to do so, you will be saving money by doing it in July, and it would be nice to have an empty shelter. It would really be great. Thank you.
Anybody else for council comments? I'd just like to reiterate Dr. Greenberg's comments about the animal shelter. I actually did adopt a dog, and they do a great job up there. And you know, Clear the Shelters is a national program. The Old Bridge Animal Shelter does a great job. And it'd be nice if the township could really come out in force and really adopt some animals and find them some homes. It'd be really nice. So great, thank you. Anybody else from council? Okay, I'll close the council comment section. We're going to go to executive session. We will not be returning.
Chair, President, there's 3 matters to be considered in executive session: collective bargaining agreement negotiations update, township personnel matter, and affordable housing litigation update.
Need a motion to go into executive?
Yes, need a motion.
I need a motion to go into executive, please. I need a motion to go into executive session.
I'll move it.
Moved by Dr. Greenberg. Second by Mr. Green. Roll call, please.
Dr. Greenberg? Yes. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Mollis?
Yes.
Mrs. Panos?
Off days.
Mr. Rosencrantz?
Yes.
Mrs. Sohar? Ms. Walker? Yes. Ms. Dungy? Excuse me. Excuse me, we're taking a vote.
Taking a vote?
Excuse me, we're trying to take a vote. President Kale?
Yes.
Thank you. 2, 4, 6.
Okay, we're going to go in executive session. So we clear the courtroom, please?